Damn, there's no such thing as good vibes only.
Yep.
It doesn't fucking exist.
Right. You can't have one without the other. Understanding it's going to be peaks and valleys. And when you know that and you're in a valley, then you can navigate it in a way that's the most effective, I think, as opposed to getting lost in the darkness. Or, the way I look at it, the aim is not to always be happy necessarily as much as it is to be at peace with what is. Mm-hmm. So you're, becoming that calm in the center of the storm. Okay, I'm observing. Okay, I'm off today. Oh, things are challenging today. Oh, my energy is lower today. Whatever. And I'm not going to get sucked into the story around it. I'm rather going to observe it and give it its space and allow it to, it's a cloud. Allow the cloud to pass by and do whatever I can to gently find my way out of it, but never with a forcing and burying it down or trying to mask it. Being authentic is everything.
That's Brandon Beachum, and this is episode 315 of Wellness Force Radio.
Wellness Force Radio, where we discover the physical and emotional intelligence to live life well.
You can have the same brain states as someone who's done an hour of meditation every day for 40 years.
There's a lot of losses that we go through, so the ability to be able to cope with those losses is very important to build skill in it, because loss will happen.
You have to have spiritual courage to really grow spiritually, because if you really want to take guidance from your soul, you have to be ready to realize that many of the things that you're asking for guidance on, your ego has some kind of an addiction to or an investment in.
This episode is brought to you by Aid Cbd. I love this drink. Have you ever drank no THC CBD in a recovery can? Aid Cbd is so good, it actually sold out in the first 48 hours when it launched last week. It's got adaptogens, 20 milligrams of hemp extract. Extract? No, extract. It's extracted from the whole plant, the actual whole organic plant. Absolutely no THC, 40 calories. It's also a refreshing lemonade taste. This thing's amazing. So while LifeAid's busy restocking, they're giving our listeners a special offer. All you have to do is text code FORCE, F-O-R-C-E, to 474747. That's code FORCE to 474747 to get $15 off your own case of Aid CBD when you pre-order today. Try this new product, this Aid CBD. Balance your mind and body just in time for the stress of the holiday season. This is the newest product from Aid and Aaron Hind from our podcast earlier this year. I love this company. I love what they represent. They're right here in California, in Santa Cruz. I think you're going to love this product. Just text FORCE to 474747 and get $15 off your own case of Aid CBD when you pre-order. In this podcast, we're talking with Brandon Beachum. Brandon Beachum is a podcaster. He's an entrepreneur. He's a writer. He's a musician. This guy's a philosopher and a truth seeker. I mean, he's been through a lot. He is the host of the Positive Head podcast, and this man has so much heart. I got to meet with him. We sat Lotus style in his office after drinking spiralized water down in the Mystic Manor living room. I'm not even joking. That's exactly what happened right after I got back from Whole Foods, where I had my chicken and veggies in the car. We've all done that, right? Eating in the car? Well, you're probably listening to this in the car and you're driving somewhere. Did you know that something's breathing you? As you drive, how many times have you thought about breathing? Or as you walk, or even as you just listen to this podcast, wherever you are, there is something breathing us. You can't deny this. Something is breathing us. And it's that very thing that we're exploring today. This inner discovery, this positivity. Brandon is the host of the Positive Head podcast, where he explores what it really means to be a human. On this podcast, they talk about all kinds of incredible things. I got to be a guest on the podcast, and this episode is one of the best when it comes to the truth about what we're doing here. Brandon talks with authors and directors and artists and bloggers and even scientists, anyone else out there really who's making a positive impact in the world. And he shares fascinating stories of synchronicity and also some paranormal happenings as they've experienced. There are going to be some concepts, forewarning, that are polarizing in this show. Stick with it. I think you'll be able to get gems from this podcast like I did, because you have an open mind. You want to have a positive head. You want to have a positive outlook on life. This is exactly what we're talking about today. We'll talk about different consciousness states, how to make change in our lives, and how we can pave the way for humanity, starting with us. This collective transformation, this collective transition into a state of expanded consciousness, real awareness, right? Whether you're spiritual or scientific, you're going to get a lot out of this show. Let's drop in right here, right now with Brandon Beachum live in this back and forth table tennis conversation where we got to have a coffee shop talk. We really just went back and forth about what's most positive in our heads and how do we get that out so that it makes a difference in the world. Let's drop in right now with myself and Brandon in this co-facilitated, co-hosted, co-created podcast from the Optimistic Studios live in Venice, California, right here, right now on Wellness Force.
I'm very excited to have Josh Trent here with me on the show. Josh is the founder of Wellness Force Media, and today we are actually sitting face-to-face here in the Mystic Manor, and we're going to do a joint interview / co-host session, and super excited for this. What's up, Josh? Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me. This is cool. I've never done a show with dark chocolate sitting in lotus position right next to a guest or a host. However you want to describe it.
You know, it's the first time for everything, and we're taking it to a whole new level. We're here in a spaceship after all, so...
This is a spaceship. If people haven't been to the Mystic Manor, just for everyone listening, we are sitting next to probably the world's greatest bathroom. It's got a 20 square foot floor shower with almost like a positron electron transfer structured water shower head.
How did you know? I didn't even tell you that.
I read the spiritual blueprint when I walked through the door, man.
Oh, man, this is going to be fun. As you can tell, Josh has a Wellness Force podcast. Is doing all kinds of interesting, fascinating things in the world. And we decided, you know what, let's just do, instead of interviewing each other sort of separately on each other's show, let's just do like a tag team. Like I ask you a question, you ask me a question, we talk about whatever comes up.
Yeah.
And I would like to stick with my very normal, all my listeners know I go to the typical opening cliche question, and I would like to still continue with that.
Cliches can be really fun.
Cliches are good, man. Cliches are good. I don't want to disappoint too much. I don't want to throw them too much. Too much change and people get freaked out. So here's the question. You're in an elevator. Mm-hmm. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Ooh. My passion is discovering why we're here, this physical and emotional intelligence, so we can live well. That's the whole point. This is why this woman and I are in an elevator, because we're going somewhere, hopefully, that we enjoy, or we're about to see somebody that we love, or we're about to do something that brings us some kind of fire, some kind of increased breath in our body or something, right? So that's why I'm here, is to dilute the toxicity of the planet by sharing my journey with discovering physical and emotional intelligence. Ding, it's the 10th floor.
Yeah, I think you almost entered the Willy Wonka elevator where you shoot into the stratosphere. And let's hope it wasn't you and your soon-to-be ex-wife on the way up to get a divorce.
No, that doesn't.
But that would still be an improving your life, right?
True. So it's all perspective.
It would still hold true. Okay, you're safe. All right.
Yeah.
Your answer's safe.
Well, can I flip it back to you?
Oh.
The 10-second. Has anybody ever flipped it back to you?
I think they probably have, and who knows what I said.
This is going to be a totally non-conventional show, you guys.
Mind-blowing.
So you're in the elevator. Okay. You got 10 floors.
Okay.
And she doesn't know you, but she's like, man, this guy's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And she might even want to date with me. So I gotta
possibly.
I got to keep that in.
If the hair is on point.
Which is always questionable with this dude. Okay, what is my answer? My answer, my passion is helping people to shift their perspectives to create more magic in their world. Helping people to ease the pain of existence by understanding the ultimate nature of reality and what's going on, and how empowering them to create positive change in their life.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great elevator ride right there.
It is. I think we got all in all, we probably hit 20 floors between the two of us. You went a little over, I went a little under.
No, Brandon, this is why I was stoked to do this dual podcast with you, because I thought, man, there's so much natural, organic overlap without us even trying. I got to spend 2 days here, really.
Yeah.
A presentation in the evening, and then hanging out with you and your crew here. And damn, you got something special.
Oh, thanks.
And there's a lot of community here, and this is a pivotal time in human evolution where if we really fortify community, I think we have an amazing chance for humanity to really wake up and for consciousness to prevail. But without community, we ain't got shit.
Yeah, it is. It's so true. One of the first books that I ever read in, spiritual centric books was Celestine Prophecy. Have you ever read this book?
I've heard of it.
Okay, so it's a fiction book based off of real principles, or what the author perceives to be real principles, and I tend to agree with. And he basically talks a lot about how the future, and this book was written like mid-90s or whatever, but the future is all about us coming together in groups, working together in groups, understanding how to read energy, when it's a moment for Josh to speak up, when it's his moment. He's got the sources is coming through, and he's the inspired one, inspiration in spirit in that given moment, and everyone in the group learning to sort of share the floor, if you will. There's no one hierarchical leader that is, the dictator. Rather, how do we come together? How do we read the energy collectively and understand how to create from this underlying premise that we're all extensions of the same thing? It's, there's only one of us in the room.
And it's called the Celestine Prophecy.
Celestine Prophecy.
Who wrote it? Do you remember the author?
James Redfield.
This is a book that gets to go everywhere then.
It was a lot of people I know have read it.
This reminds me of Buckminster Fuller. He talks about this biotensegrity model and even all of his structures that he built. And he was one of the earliest radical thinkers when it came to real synergy and community. Yeah. I'm sure you've heard of Buckminster Fuller.
Totally.
And I remember interviewing Daniel Schmachtenberger from Neurohacker.
Okay. I've had several people recommend that I should have him.
You guys would have a tennis match, man. Yeah. Anyways, it brought me back to that because he had that ageless wisdom, almost like Alan Watts, where they're both no longer here anymore, but yet, gosh, I feel so pulled to these messages when I hear them from these men. And it's really special right now. We live in a special time where we can talk through a microphone that goes to outer space, that comes back down to people's ears, and we get to change people, help change ourselves while just living our life while it's recorded. Do you ever realize that?
It's wild.
Do you realize how special that is?
It really is. I mean, our whole lives, both of us doing podcasts, it's like such a big part of our lives are utilizing this technology and tools.
Yeah.
And, 10 years ago, I guess podcasting was probably still around, maybe. I don't even know. I think
it kind of just started,
Maybe just started.
Can you imagine if you started 10 years ago?
Oh, geez.
Not that you're like lacking in the podcast department now with 1,000 episodes.
Well, I'd have 10,000.
That's right. Yeah.
No, actually, let's take that back. I started about 5 years ago. You as well, right?
Yeah. July 2015.
That was May 2015. So.
Oh, cool. The genesis of this goes to your synchronicity story that you always ask your people.
Always.
And can we go there now? Is that cool?
Yes.
Okay. So.
No, hold on. Twist my arm. All right.
Okay.
Good story of inspirational story, I guess. Yeah.
Well, it's a deep synchronous moment, and it gives me chills every time I feel into it because, man, if I look back on it, it's clear. But in that moment, it didn't seem clear at all.
Right.
And actually, it was like gut-wrenching and emotional because I was a personal trainer for 10 years. And after that time, I really wanted something different. Like I wanted something else because I was tired of counting reps for clients. And not that there's anything wrong with personal training. I just, as David Dita calls it, I was like done with a purpose and I was waiting for my next purpose.
Right.
So, I left the training industry. I still wanted to help people. And I really just got to this place where I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went to corporate America. Committed spiritual suicide. Okay. Like made good money selling endurance sports software, like the sports technology industry. But every morning I would wake up, man, and I would feel like just so uncomfortable in my body.
Right.
Like I knew there was more to life. And I got the gift of being fired after 3 years of like getting sales MVP awards. And, have you ever been good at something that you don't like?
I've broken sales records every place I ever worked that I didn't run or own, as an entrepreneur. And I understand so strongly what you're talking about. Like, just not feeling like, okay, great, I can do this really well, and it just doesn't do it for me. It's not, it doesn't feel like I'm reaching my fullest potential at all, even though comparatively I'm excelling.
Well, there's nothing wrong with helping other people build their dreams as long as it either overlaps with your dream or you believe in their dream.
Right.
But just being in a current position in a cubicle, I call it death by cubicle. And there's nothing wrong with a cubicle if your soul is connected to what you're doing, or if you actually love or enjoy what you're doing. Who cares if you're in a cubicle? It doesn't matter where you are, But for most people, I would make a blanket statement. For most people, I feel like people go to cubicles where their soul dies. Yeah. This is a soul death arena for most of us. And that's what happened to me, man. So when I got the gift of being fired, I'll never forget this. I'm driving home. I'm feeling exhilaration. I'm also feeling fear.
Sure.
I'm feeling happy. I just like really, that was like, I feel like the beginning of a hero's journey, like totally separated from what I knew, safety and security and having a paycheck all the time. Then I got to this place where I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I got home. I was with a woman at the time, and we ended up going to a sound healing ceremony. And this is 5+ years ago. So I'd never really explored sound healing at all. I didn't even know what it was. And she was like, why don't we go to this? Next thing I know, they put the crystal bowls on my body, and I'm laying there, and I'm crying. Not the kind of cry where it's like, but the kind of cry where there's just water coming out.
Uh-huh.
And I just felt like this energy in my body that I'd never felt before.
Wow.
And I was driving home, and I pulled out the phone and I said, film me. Her name was Amy. And I was like, film me, Amy. And so I said, I'm going to launch this podcast once and for all, because I'd been hesitant to launch it. I had been in fear for about 3 years.
Wow.
In fear. Who am I to have a voice? Who am I to speak my truth? Who am I?
Same old story.
All these limiting beliefs that are possibly inherited from my great-grandfather. Who the fuck knows?
Right.
So I get to this space where I did 10 minutes of recording. I said, I'm going to reach 1 million people more. I'm going to help people through wellness technology, and I'm going to coach people online. And I look back 4 years later, and that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
It's exactly what happened.
Bam.
And I'm even feeling the emotion of it right now, because I'm like, I didn't know that you and I were going to be sitting here. But yet looking back, I'm like, it's perfectly clear how I got here.
Right.
And so it makes me wonder, what are the other things in life that are so bubbling up with synchronicity and bubbling up for my attention that maybe my ego doesn't give attention to,
right?
Because I'm stuck in a loop, or I'm just not aware of my surroundings enough.
Yeah.
So with that said, like my discovery of emotional intelligence and what it really is, and my ability to feel things in my body, because that's where I live, that's my quest, because that's what got me here. So I'm just going to honor whatever it is that got me here as I move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I think of all the time with this conversation, and my listeners have heard it many times before. The story, I had a woman show up at my house one time, and she came over with someone else. I didn't know her. She was just like a friend with her, and we got talking, and she started sharing her near-death experience story with me. And she was, swimming, somewhere out swimming, and she got to a point where she couldn't hold herself up anymore. She was too far from land. It was like not a good scenario. No one was around to hear her screams or anything like that. And she started just drowning. She went down, and she's like, okay, this is it. Next thing she knows, she's having an experience being on the other side, and she is there, and there's a voice saying to her, well, welcome back. You're here, and you did everything you wanted to while you were still there, right? You went for it, right? You took the risks, right? Kind of in a prodding way. And of course she hadn't. And she's like, no, I didn't really. And then next thing you know, she's back. Something's pulling her to the surface, and she can swim again. And she makes it, and to tell the story, right?
What pulled her to the surface?
She doesn't know. So something was like pulling her by the arm to the surface. She was way under. And what I think of whenever I hear that is, with anyone out there listening, it's like when you understand how safe you actually are, the net that exists, like we are these eternal beings that your survival is guaranteed. So playing it doesn't mean go and be foolish and take some dumb risks that's, not thought through in any way, shape, or form. But as a general premise, I'm going to go for it. I'm going big or going home. At the end of the day, I'm completely safe and supported. I can't lose. You're in a holographic reality that you didn't come to sit on the sidelines and play. I think of another friend who this person, he had inherited a lot of money. He was probably 25 at the time, young guy. He had inherited a ton of money. His whole life was like about protection. Like I remember crossing the road with him, and he was hiding behind the street pole at a cross section. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, what if that car runs off the road and comes over here and hits us?
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, dude. Like, just this extreme protective mode. And, for me, I've come to the conclusion it's like if I really want to feel alive, I've got to be able to take those risks and stretch and be willing to go for something a little bit more. And a lot of times we'll get the push like you did.
Yeah.
And learning how to read, those messages like, okay, something just kind of pushed me push me out of the nest and start flapping.
Dude, I remember interviewing Gay and Katie Hendricks 3 years ago, and he was like, sometimes the universe will tickle you with a feather and it'll give you a little guidance. Sometimes your ass will get hit with a sledgehammer. And when we get hit with a sledgehammer, it really hurts.
Yeah.
But it's like from that place of pain and getting knocked down to the knees where truth can be built from.
Right.
It's almost like we have to let shit burn to the ground sometimes.
Yeah.
In order to really live life true, live life well. Have you had a moment like that where you had shit burned to the ground?
I mean, I had a moment last week where I walked into a door
That's true.
Smashed my head open. Like, okay, what is being told to me here? You know? So all in all, my journey has been probably less tumultuous in a physical, like, you know, I think of Vajra, who has curated all the visionary art here in the space in the Mystic Manor, and also was a guest on the show recently. And
he made this geometry here on the wall?
Not this particular one you're looking at, but a lot of it downstairs or in the next room even on my wall. And so there's a picture, when you go downstairs, remind me to show it to you, of a guy staring up at a fire, and the fire has a face, and it's this little man and this giant fire. And he realized it was prophetic when he was standing and all his art was burning down. All his work was burning down, and he stood in front of this big fireball that was happening when he was trying to get it out. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is my painting, you know? Wow. And so I think in some cases like his, people are actually go as far as, well, everything burning to end.
Look, maybe you've talked about it in your show before, but I have to know, you came from a corporate structure. You came from the travel company, right?
Yep.
Not everybody can do that.
Right.
Not everybody can, and I think you were even Forbes top 1,000 or something.
569 to be exact.
So that's better than 1,000.
Inc, actually. Yeah.
And to come to this world, the world where there's spirituality and, like Alan Watts calls it, prickles and goo. Like, you guys are goo here, man. You guys are gooey.
It's extra gooey around here.
It's gooey. Please give us the richness of that story, because
quite a story.
So many people that earn money in like a tension way. First time I met you, we were having dinner, and I was like, I was sharing with another friend of mine. He was like, I built my money and I built my empire with a white knuckle and trying to take advantage of as many people as I could.
Yeah.
And now I've afforded the space for me to be at peace and understand what spirituality really is.
Yeah.
But I just feel like maybe for you, I mean, with what you're doing and the way you're hosting and just who you are, I think that was always in you. It just feels like it was always there in some way.
It was. I definitely had the insight. I mean, going way back, I had a vision of creating like a music distribution platform that would ultimately form a virtual community that would then turn into a physical community, and very much in line with sharing abundance and so forth. And I had set out to do that maybe 2009, 2010. And I actually launched this platform, and it started growing, and I was doing it bootstrapped and not a lot of resources. And I hit a wall financially, and I was so frustrated. I'm like, I need to manifest more abundance because I need it to grow and do the things I want to do in the world. And that's when I was led to, I didn't have any particular affinity for travel related business or anything like that. Circumstances led me to see a big need in that space. I, set out to explore my ideas conceptually as like, okay, this could be a path for me to create more financial abundance that I can then go and do good things in the world. So it was always like a means to an end for me, was the vision of that. And so in 2010 or so, I launched that company, and the ideas that I was testing really took off.
What was it called?
Resort Share.
Cool.
And so we worked with like timeshare owners who had too much ownership that they couldn't use, and then we would do rental through like booking.com and things like that. And so
sounds like a travel Airbnb or something.
It was something like that. Yeah, it was yes, it was. At the same time we were figuring things out and starting out posting ads on Craigslist, Airbnb was there scraping Craigslist, creating their platform, and I'm like, I think they had the better idea. But, so yeah, we were, we grew from, me living on my friend's couch at that time to, having hit a rough spot just beforehand to, 100 plus employees, Inc. 569th fastest growing private company in the US in 2015, got to an exit, and it was wild. I got to this exit. We got an offer to be bought out for $30 million. Within 12 hours of that, we lost 90% of our revenue. Booking.com and the biggest timeshare developer in the world got together and formed a partnership that had specific verbiage that Booking would no longer work with us. So it blew that deal up. Then my two partners I'd brought in that, one of which was a really close friend. I uncovered that they were trying to steal what was left from me and my brother. And it was like a drama. It was like a script out of a movie. Like, okay, you can't make this stuff up. To 5 year plus to get to this big offer within 12 hours of that, to lose 90% of your revenue.
I can feel the flames of it burning to the ground.
Here is the flame story. That's a great. Yeah, thank you for tying that back together.
Oh my God.
So, but I learned a lot from it, and I think there was a lot of karmic things that needed to play out there. It's like, I have a lot of, speaking of synchronicity, I have a lot of synchronicity around my birthday. It's like a 15-minute crazy wild story, and one of those partners, his baby mama has my birthday, his grandmother has my birthday, and and it's like a huge story where I can, it would take me a while to explain it all, but so I can see, one of my favorite interviews was a guy named Eben Alexander. Are you familiar with Eben Alexander? He wrote Proof of Heaven. He was a Harvard neurosurgeon who wasn't really into this. What did you call it?
I've heard of Proof
stuff.
Of Heaven,
yeah. He wasn't that into the woo-woo and, Harvard neurosurgeon, right? And then what do you know? The Harvard neurosurgeon gets meningitis, and here's the brain specialist with a brain that goes from one day being fine to being fried the next.
Definitely heard of this, yeah.
He's in a coma.
Yep.
He's in a coma for a week. The doctors say, sorry, fam, his brain is fried. You got to pull the plug. He's not coming back. He miraculously came back. When he came back, all he remembered at first was his time on the other side. And when he shared that, that perspective that he learned, one of the things he said is, like, a lot of times the villains in your story are your best friends on the other side. They're playing those roles so that your soul can have the experience it needs to and wants to experience. And I find that really fascinating. And you look at like energetic ties to someone who, maybe is playing a villain in your story. It gives you a whole different perspective on, how it's all structured in a way that, to me, allows me to create space for forgiveness.
Yeah.
When I understand that it's all by divine design in some way.
I was literally, as you were describing, like, the enemies on the other side become your friend, your greatest teacher, I was literally seeing the yin-yang symbol. Because there is no way that we can have black without white, dark without light. It doesn't fucking exist.
Yep.
But yet, even before we recorded, you're like, Osho on his deathbed said that we really never actually transcend the ego.
Right.
Yep. God, and I'm just wondering, it's such a mystery here. So much. There's so much mystery in life. And there's a huge part of me that in the past I would get so triggered and angry why people would suffer.
Yeah.
Like, my mom was manic bipolar when I was young. My dad left when I was 2 months old. I came in, I was in an incubator, yada, yada. We all have our own kind of initiation, right?
Yeah, right.
And I'm not saying that to belittle my story or even to focus on it. It's more just like, it happened. Those were events that happened.
Yep.
So I'm just curious for you, like, if you could look back and just really see how you got here. Was there 2 or 3 points on the timeline where you're like, yep, that was definitely a transition moment for me? It sounds like the travel was one of them, where shit burned to the ground.
Yep. Creating this podcast was another. Creating Positive Head certainly was another big transition, because it's something where I was so passionate teaching and talking about the ultimate nature of reality, teaching best what I most need to learn as I explore this, a lot of these perspectives and so forth. I would talk to anyone who would listen. And so it was, my friends and family's ears were bleeding for the longest time. So I knew when I had the idea to create a podcast, I'm like, okay, this is for me. This is, and whether or not one person benefits or, millions, it's a success, because I'm living my dharma. I'm getting this, this information, these thoughts off of my chest. And I think all of us, to varying degrees, just want to be heard and felt, and to affect, the world around us. And once I had a taste for doing that and positively impacting, I know you can relate to this. Yeah. There's nothing more rewarding than getting that message or email. Like, I was, clinically depressed and nothing could help me, and I started tuning into your show, and now it's changed my life and turned, it's like, more of that, please. It's the most, incredible feeling I've ever had with it.
I had a woman email me a few months back, and she was like, because of your show, I've now become a personal trainer. I've looked at my addictions differently, And I actually have become, she said something like, I've become friends with my anxiety. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
like the happy cry feeling.
Yeah,
know?
right.
Because shit, man, if I can just do that as much as possible, then that can fuel me on days where I don't want to write emails or I don't want to manage things or, the work becomes tedious. And I don't care who you are. Like, building a dream or building anything of value that comes from the heart, it's not always going to feel like a lot of the spiritual bypassing people, not just here in LA, but across the world, preach about. Damn, there's no such thing as good vibes only. It doesn't fucking exist.
Right. You can't have one without the other. It's like, it's a necessary understanding. It's going to be peaks and valleys. And when you know that and you're in a valley, then you can navigate it in a way that's the most effective, I think, as opposed to getting lost in the darkness or, wow, I'm feeling down today. I'm not feeling great. Okay, I'm going to love myself here. It's like Matt Kahn, who I had on Optimistic a couple weeks ago. He wrote the book, Whatever Arises, Love That. And I just love that as just a general premise as the way to navigate. It's like, okay, this is here. A master is someone who embraces whatever shows up because they know it's exactly what they need to get them to the next greatest and grandest version of themselves. So when you really understand that, then it's like, okay, the game, the way I look at it, the aim is not to always be happy necessarily as much as it is to be at peace with what is. So you're, becoming that calm in the center of the storm. Okay, I'm observing. Okay, oh, I'm off today. Oh, things are challenging today. Oh, my energy is lower today. Whatever. And I'm not going to get sucked into the story around it. I'm rather going to observe it and give it its space and allow it to, it's a cloud. Allow the cloud to pass by. Allow it and do whatever I can to gently find my way out of it, but never with a forcing and, burying it down or trying to mask it. Being authentic is everything.
What do you think the role of money is here in this 3D reality? Like, how do you see money as energy?
Great question.
I'm asking it for me too.
Yeah.
Currency with you.
Currency, man. Yeah. I mean, it's meant to flow. So, there's so many hangups around money and so
much wounding, so much pain.
Yeah. And, the truth is you can't be poor enough to help enough poor people. You can't be sick enough to help sick people. And so understanding, what really helped me with it, and I certainly have my own journey with money that is still, unfolding, and I'm certainly calling in more financial abundance to do more good in the world with is the story that I tell, and really the truth for me. It's like I would like to have billions of dollars ultimately flow through me. And, for my last meal, I need to borrow $5 to get, my last meal because I dispersed it all into the world in some way, shape, or form to keep it flowing, keep it in a way that's affecting things positively. I think that's the only thing that the only gauge when we get to the other side is, okay, how much good did you do? That's really not like, oh, how many zeros did you leave in your bank account? Yeah. And so in a lot of people, I think it turns into this. I've been around a lot of super wealthy people, and I noticed this trend of like, it becomes this, how do I stack away more? And they even go a lot of times from after they've accumulated wealth, then it becomes about preservation rather than growing it. Like, I don't want to lose what I have. Why would I risk anything to get more or to do anything in the world when I have it so good and it's so easy for me now? And I don't, if I preserve it, then I can continue with this lifestyle where I've sort of made it home free where the financial concerns are, and I don't want to risk ever going backwards. And for me, that just doesn't work for me. I think, getting into alignment with the idea, what really empowers me is remembering that I'm one with the source that creates and animates all things. I'm so abundant, I built this place. And so did you listening, right? That's like, you talk about, oh, do I deserve more? I love the saying, I don't remember where I originally heard it, but when you come holding your bag of sugar to be filled, it will be examined to see how large it is. How much do you think you're worth? How big is the bag that you're holding out? For the universe to give you 10 billion, it's like giving you $10. If you're energetically, it feels the same to you.
Yes.
Right? It's infinite, the amount that's there. You're the one that like built and created the tools and the resources, not only for this planet, this whole 3D universe and beyond. You're one with that infinite power and source of abundance. And we're here like, sitting on the back of a whale fishing for a minnow. Like we're so
that's a cool visual.
There's so much that's at our disposal, and we're at a point in our evolution where we're learning how to open the nozzle more, open the faucet so that we can allow more in. And it starts with understanding the situation in which you find yourself, and that is that you are as worthy for infinite abundance as any other soul ever has been or will be.
When I listen to you, my body feels relaxed, which tells me that it's true. Because I used to always use my mind to be like, is that true or not? And like try to poke holes in people's shit instead of just being in my body. Just being at home in my body. Like everyone listening can feel what you're saying. If their body is attuned to it, if they've done the work to be somatically open, right?
How did you get there where you figured that out as a way? Like,
that's the journey, man. Because I was thinking when you were talking about vibration, I was like, okay, one of the first interviews I saw was Michael Beckwith on Oprah, and he was describing you can be a vibrational match temporarily. You can kind of fake it till you make it. And you can make a bunch of money, but you're going to lose it. Because if you're not a vibrational match in your core, in who you really are, like if you're, whether you want to describe it as chakras being aligned or your soul is connected to your head or however you want to describe it, like we all have had temporary success. And I think I did. I think I had like temporary success even when I started the podcast, to be on like New and Noteworthy. But I was struggling. I was fucking struggling. And it's exactly what you believe, and I've heard you talk about it. We teach most what we get to learn. And that has always, even when I wasn't aware of it, always been my MO. Like really just understanding like, wow, if I can just share everything that's going on for me, even if it's really uncomfortable and I feel kind of nervous to share it, I know that it's going to unlock something in someone hearing it. And so the process began for me being a really overweight kid, being 280 pounds at 21 years old.
Wow, you're so fit now. But I could see the inner fat kid there.
You can see it, right? Yeah. I mean, we all have it. We all have it. Give me
Mine might be more outer right now.
Give me the ding-dongs, y'all.
Half the ding-dongs.
So, but that's where it started for me. Like my soul contract or my whatever energetic transmission for me to get down here was that I was going to choose a mom who had emotional and mental health issues. I was going to choose a dad that had cognitive dissonance. And by the way, I love you, Mom and Dad, with all my heart because I see you. I see how awesome you are, and I see what you've been through. And my soul came down for this kind of challenging upbringing. So I found this drug when I was young, and it was not cocaine or ecstasy, like it was food, because food allowed me to like get that deep rest, that feeling of rest that I wanted. And so when I was stressed, when I was unhappy, when I was sad, when my mom would be in her room crying, when my dad wasn't around, when I would get bullied at school, however you want to describe it, I would just go to food. And so like to no surprise, flash forward, I'm 21 years old. I'm 280 pounds. I'm in a job I hate.
280 pounds.
280 pounds, man. Wow. And I did a lot of athletics in high school, so a lot of it was muscle, but still like I'm 215 now. I feel good, Anyways, I got to this point where I was so sad and so frustrated and just like, I can even go there right now, just time traveling. Like I was at a party drinking. I didn't really want to be in this relationship. I didn't want to be a Mercedes-Benz mechanic. That was my first career out of high school.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't happy in my body. So it was like health, wealth, relationships. The triangle was fucking melting. Like everything was burning to the ground. And I'll never forget this, man. I like slammed down a party cup. I was playing beer pong. And I felt this feeling from source. I didn't know it was source at the time, but I was like, there's more to life than this? Like it was like a message, like almost as if it was an ayahuasca screaming at me, like there's more to life than this.
Wow.
So I slammed the cup down. I ran home drunk for like 3 miles.
Wow.
And I typed in the computer, like, how do I be healthy? Wow. I spent the next year and a half figuring out like losing weight, gaining weight, trying to understand what health really was and like what eating and movement really was. Then I became so frustrated that I sold everything I owned and I moved to Hawaii when I was 24 years old. And in Hawaii, I spent 6 months by myself. Wow. Just being with Josh. Wow. And like understand like, who's Josh?
Right.
We never get taught this in school.
No.
Nobody ever teaches us like, you need to be still and meditate because here's what's going to come from it. Or, hey, here's what self-inquiry looks like.
Yeah.
This is not taught. So I really felt like Source kind of woke me up at that table of drinking and just brought me to this place where I could go to Hawaii for 6 months and explore who I really was. Wow. And what I found was I was sad, I was angry, I was resentful, I was a petulant child, you know, so I needed an outlet to get that anger out, and I found fitness. I was working out at a gym and the fitness manager was like, I've seen you get good results. You should think about being a personal trainer. And I was like, what's a trainer? I didn't even know what training was. Wow. And that led me to a 10-year career that we already talked about where I transitioned from. But my physical intelligence, my ability to be physically intelligent, really only came from having the background of 10 years and like 10,000 hours with clients to see what they were going through, which really all they needed was to breathe and to have a friend.
Right.
That's the majority of what these people needed in a session, not how to do a perfect lunge.
Right.
And now I can look back on it and be like, oh, I needed all that bedrock of training and seeing what people really needed so that I could see what I needed in myself.
Right.
Because we always attract the clients and the people that really resonate with where we are too.
Yep,
I don't care how much mastery you have.
Yep.
And so I got to this place where, I was called to the medicine in 2015 with ayahuasca. And that really drove me deeper into like feeling my body, feeling my stomach actually really. I was always afraid to let my stomach hang out because I was picked on a lot when I was young and like fat, your stomach, blah, blah. So being in my stomach, being in my heart, being in my throat, stomach, solar plexus, heart, and throat for me are like, if I make my decisions from there, I'm always on the right path. Wow. But if I'm holding my breath, and if I'm not using breath work, and if I'm not in my body, even just hearing you talk, I'll remind myself to breathe while you're talking. Just breathe in through my nose. Yeah. Because if we can do that as a human being, then we can connect to what's actually there. But most of us are just so holding our breath. We're so like clavicle up.
Breathing shallow.
Yeah, like messages, whatever you want to call it, divine inspiration, downloads, nothing can get through because our conduit is blocked. So yeah, I might get something on an analytical or logical level, but it's not going to sink in me like it is if I'm breathing and I'm listening to somebody that I respect.
Right.
Or I'm open to whatever messages they're giving me. That's a totally different intelligence.
Right.
And I think that for body intelligence, people get it all wrong. Most people try to study like, how do I get ripped? How do I get muscles? How do I get six pack? How do I run a marathon? Blah, 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 blah. And that's cool because I think there is some part of the human body that is kind of fun to push sometimes, but when it comes to like what I believe physical intelligence is, it's our ability to embody. Like, isn't that funny? Like, it's the word body isn't embody.
Right.
It's our ability to embody how something really feels so that we know that it's true.
Yeah.
And so our mind creates a feedback loop. Our physical and emotional intelligence are tied together. So that's where it started for me, man, was having those 10 years going through really just having a lot of thoughts that weren't true. A lot of old thoughts about my body wasn't good enough and I was too fat and who would want to be with me. And that led to a lot of, honestly, addictions, and things that did not serve my soul, which now I look back on that old version of Josh and I'm like, man, I love you. Like you did such a good job. Like you were coming from a place of love. It's just you didn't have the awareness.
Right.
So that's our job, man, is to just be more aware of what intelligence really is.
Yeah, and understanding the rite of passage through it all. There's probably someone out there listening who maybe is in the worst health of their life right now.
Or they have a disease or something.
Yeah, and knowing that, like, okay, that's not it's just a stopping off point. I think of I don't know if you've met Ian, who's the chef here.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so Ian, originally, he was 70 pounds heavier maybe 2 years ago or so. Through the podcast, we did a group cleanse and he participated in that and he ended up like just turning himself around. Now he's one of the healthiest people I know.
He's super healthy.
Super healthy. He's
making like the best food I've ever had.
Food. So good. He's like works out constantly, but he wasn't that 2 years ago. He shared a picture the other day and I was like, wow, it's such a different character. And it's like, okay, you that was a part of your journey. And that's the exciting thing. It's like every moment is another chance to turn it all around. If you're hearing this and it's like, if Ian can do it, you can do it. If Josh can do it, you can do it. Yeah. It's always, that's the most exciting thing about everything, all of our growth and learning as beings and something that, even someone, I think sometimes people get like, oh, I'm 70 years old. It's too late for me or whatever. It's like, no, you're actually an eternal being and whatever learning and growth happens here is carrying forward.
It is if you say it is.
Yep. Right. Right.
And it's easy for me. I'm 39. So somebody 70 is like, look at this 39-year-old telling me what I should and should not do. I'm not telling you should do anything. I'm just telling you the truth that deep down is actually true.
Right.
That's all I'm doing.
It's reminding you of what you already know.
I want to go back because I felt something in my body when you were describing like people that want to lose weight. Man, if I could just share this one thing right now, let me just relax my shoulders when I say this. Like, if you think that when you lose weight or when your body looks a certain way, that you're then finally going to feel good or you're going to be like, oh, I'm loved, I'm supported. Like that is the ultimate lie of your ego. Because what I can share from you from my own 39-year experience is that is a lie that perpetuates the broken fundamentals of the fitness and the weight loss industry. That is the entire lie that everyone swallows because we're fed these advertisements, these weapons of distraction where it's like, oh, if I look like that, then I'll feel good. Then people will love me. Instagram perpetuates this bullshit.
Totally.
So what I want to share with you is the truth. And the truth is that you be happy. You embody happiness. You embody love. You love yourself. You enjoy exercise. You love the way eating greens and food feels. You love that. And that feeling, that energy is actually what allows you to let go of the weight. You don't lose weight to get happy. Yeah. You embody and do the inner work to be happy. And I fucking promise you with all of my heart and soul, I promise you the weight will come off. Yeah. And I did it wrong for 4 or 5 years where I was just like tracking my calories and macros and just like really, really hurting myself, like really harming myself, you know? So that's it, my friends. Like do the work of inner happiness and the weight will slide off of you. Yeah. That is it.
Most people, do something like work in order to have something like money in order to be something like happy when really that be paradigm is the way it works is the opposite. You be it to see it. You be something like happy. Okay, in this case, in this example, I'm happy that I got on the treadmill for the first time ever today. I may be completely overweight and I did the small thing, and I'm going to love myself there, right? So I'm being happy in that moment, and that's going to perpetuate you wanting to do more of it. And then you find yourself having and doing more things that are in alignment. They'll start appearing, even reflections of that state that you created on your own. All of a sudden, reflections of it, which make it even easier. And it turns into this positive feedback loop. Next thing you know, you've created from the inside out.
Well, and let's be even more honest. What you're talking about is like this almost maintenance of your vibe. There's a maintenance aspect. So there's days where we're going to be really challenged to hold high vibe. And sometimes it's okay if the high vibe goes away. But there is like a dedicated path to being in a higher vibration, whether you're analytical or spiritual. And those are all the tools that I love learning about. Like that's what I feel from you here. You're spotlighting all these guests in your community with the food and the backyard and nature and living close to the ocean. Like there's a lot of elements that are baked into your world that are around the maintenance factor of that higher vibration. Did you design that on purpose or did that come through randomly? No, something tells me it wasn't random.
It wasn't random. I launched Positive Head with that, first and foremost for myself. Right? It's like, okay, I need something daily to continue to manage my vibration. I started off once a week and I'm like, I need more than this. Okay. And then I went to 5 days a week and that became a, a way for me to.
We thought there was an earthquake, you guys. The building started shaking.
I think it's a dryer.
Okay.
that became a way for me to, start down the path of, the most growth I've had has been in these years since launching the podcast because, and there were days I'll get up and I'm like, I'm not necessarily feeling.
I'm not in the mood.
I'm not in the mood to be Mr. Positive Head, right? And when I would turn my attention there and start to focus on that direction and even share vulnerably or authentically, like, okay, I've had an off day and you just processing it out loud and moving through it. Next thing you know, by the time the recording's over, I'm like, I feel great. I actually processed it in a really healthy way. Or I feel better. Maybe I'm not, this isn't going to be my pinnacle day, but working through it in a way without over dramatizing it and just letting it be what it is. And, I think vulnerability and authenticity are the greatest superpower that we have. And as I learned to do that more and more publicly out of necessity, because, that's something that I'm like, how was I ever inauthentic before? It makes no sense.
My entire life and business and podcast shifted so radically when I had a weekend intensive with a business coach in Vegas. And I was really, like I said earlier, I was white knuckling. I'm like, how am I going to grow this thing? Like, how am I going to reach people? How am I actually going to, quote, do this thing? And he said to me, what are you the most afraid of sharing? Like, what freaks you out when you think about sharing it? Wow. And I was like, well, I'm leading this wellness podcast, but like I don't really feel well. And like I'm not really super stoked on the extra energy I'm carrying, and I'm not really in a relationship. And there's a lot of components of wellness that like I really was afraid of looking at, you know, like my shadow side of those. And he's like, start sharing that.
Yeah.
Start sharing what you're most afraid of and do it.
Ooh,
and
that
that will be the genesis of how you master those things. And at the time I was like, I don't want to fucking do that. I don't want to share my vulnerable stuff, you know? And, but God, it's been this podcast, like you said, with Positive Head, like Wellness Force has been my journey into tapping into that force within myself.
Yeah.
We're all sentient beings wherever we came from source energy down here to do something and to do it well.
Right.
So the challenge is like, okay, how do we actually surrender to that process and attune to it? By just being real.
Yep.
By just saying, here's where I'm really at. Here's what I'm really going through. This is hard. Do you guys ever go through that too? Oh, yeah. There's like 45 million people right now that actually, if heard this, would say yes.
Yep.
So we're never alone. And it's this illusion of fucking separation that Brandon's issues and Josh's issues and everyone listening's issues are somehow only ours.
Right.
You know, they're only our issues, and no one else feels lonely. No one else deals with their weight. No one else feels stressed. No one else has a broken heart. It's all a lie.
Yep.
It's all a lie. And sometimes I wonder, why does that lie even exist? You know, where do these lies come from? Do they come from past generation? Do they come from the collective unconsciousness itself? Do they come from the field? And we just absorb it based on a lesson that we have to learn? I mean, we can go a lot of different ways with that question.
Yeah. That's a great question. And, you know, one thing that I always say to people is if it scares you and excites you, it's probably for you.
Sounds like intimate relationship.
Yeah. It really, I mean, you know, each of us, your growth edge is going to be a little bit scary and it's going to be a little bit exciting. And, you know, I think what's great, though, Josh, I think more and more people now have taken the standpoint of being more vulnerable in their lives. Yeah. Like you have people out there who've been really guarded their whole lives, and then they've heard from me or you or someone else like vulnerability. Oh wow, I found this new superpower, vulnerability, and they're like, okay, let me think about this. I'm gonna test the waters a little bit, and then they go and be vulnerable with someone in their life, and it just opens things up in a way that they're like, whoa, that got like incredible results. And that's really what I always say about all this stuff is, you know, just be open-minded enough to explore it and test it and see for yourself, because the results speak louder than any, you know, we can talk all day. What are the results if you apply some of these perspectives and you're willing to sort of step out on that, you know, out of your comfort zone?
And this is what blocks people, though, is because as they do what you're saying, there's the pride element that comes in. And the pride says, don't try, don't be vulnerable, don't apply, don't learn, don't put yourself out there, because if you do, you're going to look like a fucking idiot. Mm-hmm. So pride is like this ultimate black veil of growth.
Yeah.
It's pride that's really like almost the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
Like if Pride was a Halloween character, Pride would dress up for Halloween as the Grim Reaper, because Pride just crushes and slices the neck of people's dreams.
Yeah. Right.
It just kills people, man. And I even feel it still. I still feel it. And I'm like, how do I love the pride aspect? Mm-hmm. You know, how do we love our fears? How do we love the things that cause us pain? How do we love all the things? You know, which the gentleman you were mentioning that you interviewed a couple weeks ago, you think you said something about how do I love that?
Whatever arises, love that.
Whatever arises, love that. I mean, talk about the ultimate learning curve for life.
Yep.
That's been a big one for me, man, especially loving the things that I've done in my past. Mm-hmm. You know, like really forgiving myself for addictions, the way I treated women, the way I treated myself. And just feeling into that a lot this year. You know, we're stepping into a new decade, man, 2020.
Wow.
And this is a call to arms for all of us.
Yeah.
You know, like, what are we really doing?
Who said it to me the other day? 2020, I hadn't really put this together. They're like, oh, it's the year of clear vision. You know, 2020, we're 2020 vision. Right?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
It's like, if there's symbology in there, and there always is, that's a really good, that we're all stepping into a year where written on the poster card, on the front of the book of the year is Clear Vision 2020. So, you know, and that's really what it all comes down to, is like once you start integrating these clearer perspectives on how to navigate your reality, once again, the results are going to speak for themselves. And I just applaud everyone who's listening for doing it. I mean, think of all the things they could be tuning into. How many things are vying for their attention, and they're listening to you and me talk about this stuff right now?
Yeah.
These are people who are like, I want the clear vision. I'm ready. I'm willing. I'm curious. I'm willing to self-examine. I'm willing to put myself, in uncomfortable situations in order to instigate, growth. And it's inspiring. I'm inspired by how many people actually are, turned on by this and wanting to go down this path. It just fuels my fire to continue.
What's one of the most uncomfortable edges you're leaning into so that when you're in the clear vision, you can maintain it? In other words, what's something that still gives you the gift of a trigger that you're leaning into with love? Is there something like that in your life right now?
Something that I'm still leaning into that triggers me.
I got a few of them. Personally.
Yeah, please. Yeah, and then I'll think about what mine is.
Okay, so my one of my biggest triggers is feeling misunderstood. So I'm in an intimate partnership, which it's the deepest love I've ever had in my life. And it's brought up my biggest triggers. Because in intimate partnership, the child self, the shadow self, and the higher self, they're all kind of hanging out and dancing with each other. And that's what masculine and feminine polarities, or however your relationship structure, it's all good. If you're straight, if you're gay, if you're hetero. Straight and hetero are the same thing. So yeah, I just realized it. So however you structure a relationship, my biggest edge right now is to stay on purpose, on mission, be in self-care of my body, maintain my friendships, and be open and powerful to the lessons that are coming through in intimate partnership. It's this massive balancing act, health, wealth, relationships triangle. That's my biggest edge right now, is noticing, being aware of the trigger, being aware of being misunderstood, and knowing that it's not personal, like really deeply down knowing that it's not personal, like embodying that really like mental warrior child heart archetype where it's like, I'm going to keep an open heart to you no matter what happens. And I'm going to use my mind to notice when I'm doing a pattern that's not serving me. Right. I'm going to stay open in my heart and use my mind how it was designed. But my heart's the leader. Yep. My heart's fucking leading this. My mind is the servant. Yeah. And that's my biggest edge right now. And, I love Carrie and Michelle. I love our union. And at the same time, it's brought up so much in me that I didn't even know was there. Right. And that's real.
Whew, that's powerful. And, once you understand that your relationships are first and foremost about your growth, and secondarily about your, happiness skipping through, happily ever after kind of vibes. Yeah. It's like you come together for the opportunity to grow. And growing is not always the simplest thing. And your triggers are your treasures, right? And so this person, it's like Ram Dass said, if you think you're, enlightened, spend a week with your family. And it's that same thing. Your partner.
Somebody's listening to this during the holidays. They're like, yep.
They just got triggered. And so, partnerships, there's no greater romantic partnerships. There's probably no greater opportunity for growth. Greatest opportunity for some of the greatest opportunity for joy as, human, and the greatest opportunity for growth and to be, just rubbed the wrong way some of the times. And just being aware that that's a part of the journey. And also this idea that, it's there for growth. All relationship is for growth. Yeah. And what I think one of the big misconceptions we talked earlier about, where did these messages or ideas come from? Yep. The idea that a relationship has to last forever in order to be successful. That's a big one that permeates our collective, consciousness. And oh my gosh, we made it 5 years, and all of a sudden this natural separation occurred for whatever reason. I feel like pulling away, and it's like, and we tried to make it work. We tried to force it, and then it only got more painful. And then it collapsed after all this forcing, and now we're a failure, and it was all for naught, and it was a waste of time because we didn't, skip into the sunset together. It's like, you're going to come together and with different energies throughout eternity. Yeah. And it's always, and thank goodness there's some shelf life to it, whether, you spend a whole lifetime together or 5 weeks or 5 days or whatever. Sure. That separation gives us the opportunity to miss it and to have, you never truly lose anyone or anything. And that brings me a lot of joy. It's like, okay, if I'm in a relationship with anyone, friend or romantic or whatever it might be, if there's a separation that occurs, honoring that separation, knowing that I'm infinitely abundant, the universe will send whatever else that I need, and a lot of times we get so hung up on like this thing, we got to last the next 100 years or this is a complete failure.
Sure.
And I think that's such a massive misconception.
I love what you're saying, and plus sign on top of it. I also believe that if we are not truly aware of our attachment styles, our deepest triggers, the gut feeling that everybody talks about that navigates them through relationships can be soured.
Yeah.
Think about how many things in this world can literally change people's gut feeling if they're not aware. It could be gut-brain dysbiosis. It could be an abusive parent situation that somebody just pushed under the rug and never dealt with. There's a lot of, I agree with what you're saying, and I think there's another reality too, where if someone really loves someone and they know it, and they have a desire for that to work, without forcing it, they can make it last as long as it's supposed to last. It could be the whole life.
Yeah, which could be your entire lifetime.
By doing their inner work. Yeah. So I think there is a caveat. Obviously, if you're in an abusive relationship, leave. Right. There's certain things that don't serve us, and we know it whether our access is messed up or not. But there's a lot of women in my life that I think I could have lasted longer and gotten more lessons from, whether it was supposed to be a lifetime or not.
Yep.
If I would have been more aware of my triggers and of my attachment styles. And I don't say that to shame the old Josh, because again, I'm hugging him. He's good. The old Brandon was cool too. I can see him back there. He's a good dude. But it's just the level of awareness that we're operating at, which is why I'm so fucking grateful for you and I to just be here. Yeah. Just be here in this moment and talk about what we believe to be the truth. Because in 3 years, we're going to believe things to be the truth that we weren't even aware of now.
Yep.
And it's going to keep unfolding, man.
It's an ever unfolding, onion of sorts. And I think you're 100% right. What I'm saying is, by no means, I think it's a beautiful story for someone to meet at 16 years old and then spend the rest of their life together, till they're 116. Cool. That's the soul contract and path, the optimal path for growth for some people.
I wonder if that's happened, high school sweethearts and then they're 100 and still married.
I know.
Of course it has.
I mean,
it's possible.
Yeah. Is there a 100-year anniversary out there?
Can you send us a link? Yeah. Send us a link of this story.
100-year anniversary. Wow.
It's our 100-year wedding anniversary.
I mean, that one is probably pretty tough because they would both have to make it to 116.
Maybe there's definitely 75 years.
Definitely 75. 100 is a little trickier. Dude. But it's inevitable to happen. I mean, they say the first person to live to 150 healthily now is probably 50 or 60. And then you have some people talking about us living to be in the thousands, Do
you play around with biohacking or longevity at all?
I mean, I certainly haven't went as deep down the rabbit hole as a lot of people. Yeah, me neither.
But, I explore. It's just something where I feel like my passions are more about how do we live the richest life and the life well lived now.
Yep.
I'm not for some reason called to extending it as long as it possibly can be.
Right.
But I get why people want that though.
Especially if you think that this is the only vehicle you get to check out of the lot. It's like maybe at 120, I'm ready to turn in this avatar and get something a little updated.
Yeah, man, I saw my grandma on my dad's side and my grandpa just have these really sad and just lengthy departures. Mm-hmm. And then I saw my grandpa, he went in and he was pretty much out. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I want to kind of go like that. Mm-hmm. And I saw my other grandma, she went through a little bit of suffering too. I think there is something so beautiful though. I was watching a video about Alan Watts. It was the meaning of life on this YouTube channel called After School with a K. Mm-hmm. And it's this beautiful reminder. I used to be kind of angry at death or really super sad with death. And it came up in a lot of ceremonies. And as of the past few months, I've just really been reminding myself, death is this beautiful, beautiful contrast.
Birth. It's a birth. I believe death is a birth. When you were born to this dimension, you sort of died from whence you came. You know what I mean? Your consciousness that's here left there, and that was a death in a sort. And when you die here, you'll go back. That your consciousness will go back there, and it's a birth back to. So there's really, there's no such thing. There's transit. It's like going through different doors. Mm-hmm. That's how I view it.
Do you believe, we were talking a couple days ago about Interstellar, the multiple unlimited realities, almost like when Neo in the second Matrix went to go see the architect, and he's like, you've been here before.
I know.
And there was unlimited TVs around. I want to believe that's true.
I do.
The more, okay, can you convince me?
Okay. So
can you convince me that's true?
I don't know if I can convince you, but I'll certainly.
Or just at least, yeah. Like,
so the way I view it is your life plays out at the corner of free will and destiny. So it's, speaking of Interstellar, remember when they're on the planet and there's a giant wave coming and they get stuck longer than they planned on being there, and an extra 5 minutes on that planet led to an extra 20 years on Earth. That's based off real science. So we know time is illusory. If you shoot me into outer space at light speed and bring me back a day later, I'm a day older and you've been dead 100 years. So your 5th birthday party, I believe, is happening on another channel right now. You're just not tuned into that reality. As well as from this moment forward, there is versions of you, many versions from this moment forward. So I say it's destined because it's all already happened in the eternal now, right? It's all playing out now. And you just happen to be tuned in to the moment where the two of us are sitting here in front of this microphone having this conversation, which is always happening. You're just watching that movie again, in a sense, because you like it. And so it's destined because it's already happened. It's free will because from this moment forward, source, God, higher self, whatever you want to call it, it is infinite in what it can experience. So you get, to give you an example, my first psychic reading that I ever had, I was sitting in front of a woman in Atlanta, Georgia, and she said, I see you in a cold place like Chicago working in business. Well, my jaw hit the floor because I was planning to move to Chicago and work in business at that time. And then she goes, there's this whole other path, though, in California and music. And a year later, with the help of some psilocybin, I decided to form a band. Then I met someone from California. He brought me out for a visit. I was like, oh, my God, I got to live here. And here we are. So what was she seeing in that moment forward? She was seeing the potential Brandons based off of where I was vibrating.
Well, I get to meet this woman.
Yeah.
Can you connect me with her, please?
Oh man, that was like 20 years ago. But if anyone ever tells you, I can definitely predict the future, like run, because I think they can see probabilities in some cases, but there's free will because you get to determine which version of you from this moment forward. So that's how I view it. Now, what's the question? From this moment forward, you want to experience the greatest and grandest version of Josh, right? No matter how statistically improbable, the greatness or whatever, if you can imagine it, God has been there, done that, and gotten the t-shirt. Its source is infinite. So everything that I've ever created that seems, maybe above average or extraordinary, and anything that I will going forward comes from me saying, yeah, of course I'm going to do it. Of course I'm going to make it. It's just a vibrational choice. You be it to see it. And this is how we navigate I don't know if you're familiar with the Bashar, who claims to be a channel. And, I would say with channeling, whether it's happening or not, I'm indifferent. I'm more concerned with the information that comes through. And he talks about how every moment we're literally flickering in and out of reality. I mean, the particles that make me up are like literally vibrations of energy flashing in and out of existence like a movie projector, right? Yeah. It's a light show. Everything's made of light. So literally it's all vibration. Nothing is solid. And we're navigating potential realities with our vibration, which lead us to what version of reality we step into next. So and I just actually talked about this on yesterday's
I'm glad. Days ago episode. I'm glad it's fresh. I mean, because I'm the question that sparks for me is, if there is unlimited, and if we're in one of those unlimited now, is it as simple as just deciding what we want? Is that truly it? And the reason it feels to the logical mind so challenging is because the logical mind says it can't be that simple.
Yeah, and we're still getting our sea legs as mini gods, is the way I put it. We're creators, we're chips off the block, we're fractals of the one, right? And we're in a simulation that is for babies, to get better at this creation thing. Thankfully there's some lag in the third dimension, I would say, where if we don't think about the 30-story state puff marshmallow man, and then he appears. So I don't know if you remember Ghostbusters.
Oh, for sure.
It's not happening instantaneous. Now, when you think about being disembodied and beyond the physical, you think about, traveling with thought, instantly manifesting something. Oh, I want to create something. It's magic, right? So in 3D reality, I believe there's some lag here, which actually serves to protect us in some ways. But as we ascend or evolve, that gap is getting narrower and narrower. As this dimension merges with the next, we're seeing quicker manifestations, more magic, more, trippy stuff is happening, certainly in my world. So there's a merging and melding that is happening right now between this dimension and the next. So the manifestation stuff is getting more pronounced, and it's more important that you get your game on lock, because lest you create something that you really don't want to see.
If someone's beginning to get their game on lock, what does that look like? They're just starting to get their game on lock. So
I think, one of the things I've heard before that sounds true and feels true to me is, as you remember, come back together with everyone and everything, and realize everywhere I go, I'm there waiting for myself. I'm the only one in the room. The separation between us is, an illusion, a divine dichotomy, a relative truth. You and I are separate. We can make that argument. You and I are one. We can make that argument. Both are true depending on the vantage point from which we're viewing. So from the ultimate perspective, it's all one, and you're the only one in the room. So, as you start to play with that idea, it becomes more and more, you start understanding, like, oh, hold on, everything is feedback to me. It's just telling me what I need to know. You start acting as if everyone else is the master and you're the student, right? So the guy who cut you off on the road, he doesn't know he's a master giving you exactly what you need to sharpen your axe. You wanted to be a smooth sailor. Well, or a skilled sailor. Smooth seas never made for a skilled sailor. You need those things to rub up against you. Like Rumi said, how will your mirror be polished if you're annoyed by every rub? So you're here. Everyone is teaching you what you need to become the next greatest and greatest version of yourself. You're in your training ground. And as we level up, it's like the video game where you start off with nothing, then you get the wooden axe, then you get the steel axe, then you get the armor, then you're leveling up. And one of the things that I've heard that rings true is, as you sort of ascend back to your godhood state, climb back up the sliding scale, so to speak, one of the stop-off points a lot of times will be fame and fortune and all those things, until you realize, okay, this is all illusory, and of course I created that, and now I've gotten what I can from that, and it's kind of like not necessary. And so, I think a lot of times you'll see people like they're waking up and like, oh wow, I'm the only, I'm literally, one of the stop-off points for people is this sort of Jesus complex, like, oh, I'm the one, And I've seen this a lot of times with people who come online spiritually. They're tapping into the truth that they are the one, but they forget that so is everyone else, And so it can be a trap where, a lot of times people get really like, oh, I'm special, I'm better or superior. And it's another ego trick, and kind of like spiritual narcissism, is sort of, I feel like, a rite of passage for a lot of people on this journey.
Man, especially here in LA. There's so many of these spiritual narcissists and spiritual bypassers, and same thing with Encinitas. And honestly, I guess you could say same thing in any kind of cultural growth hub where people focus on consciousness. Spiritual narcissism. Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel that.
It's a thing. It's a stop-off point on the journey, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, what is narcissism? It's like someone that feels that there needs to be a veil of perfection in front of them so that they don't actually have to look at the imperfection behind and love the imperfection. Like, narcissism is rampant right now. And I feel like with social media, it feeds the narcissistic engine of the collective. Yeah. Like, I really, there's a part of me that's like, I understand why we have social media, and I see the beauty in it, because honestly, it brought you and I together in some way. Yep. But then there's also the awareness of this dark side of it.
It's like everything, though, right?
It's just like everything.
Two-sided, sword, double-edged sword. It can. Someone said to me the other day, was it you? I can't remember something. You can use a scalpel to, kill someone. You can use it to heal someone.
Yeah.
How everything is neutral.
It might have been me. I've said the thing about the hammer before too. Hammers can build a home.
Yep.
You can also kill someone with a hammer. Yep. So is anything ever bad? I mean, you could say that a plane of kids that are traveling for band presentation to Sweden that go down in a fiery blaze. One could say that that's the most terrible, painful thing ever.
Yep.
And I don't know if we can ever really explain that. A mother loses her life in childbirth. There's incredibly deep wounding, painful things that happen in this world. And at the exact same moment there's a baby being born, there's this conversation happening, there's a friend that we'll meet up with later, there's love making, there's good food. It's an amalgam of all these things. And I think to some people it can be so overwhelming because there's this quest for why. Why are all these things happening?
Yeah.
Did you ever get sucked down that hole of why?
I went deep down that hole and have strong opinions of why. I'm happy to share my opinion. So the why is you can't know that which you are unless you know that which you are not. You're talking about an infinite creator being. I mean, think about that for a moment. Feel into that for a minute. Imagine, having a million lifetimes. Like, you're infinite. You're really indestructible. You can't be harmed. And then you say, okay, I'm going to experience. And part of that being it's all one and it's all love, right? God is love and it is one, right? Well, that becomes meaningless. That means nothing if there's no, like we talked about earlier, you've never seen a great work of art without shadow in it. You can't know that which you are unless you know that which you are not. So you step out of that safety net, almost boringly safety net, and say, okay, I want to feel alive. I want to feel adventure. I want to feel loss. Because I can't really lose anything, but I can pretend to lose something. So how about I have a child that dies in a car accident and I really know what love means now because I experienced not losing it for the first time in eternity. I can actually lose something, knowing behind it all the cosmic gag is it was just pretend, because you get to the other side and you laugh at what your grief was. Like, oh, here you are again, and I can never lose you and you're always a part of me. But I did experience for a moment what it felt like to lose you, which made this experience now have more meaning. So it's all about contrast. So God is using all of these quote unquote painful things. It's all happening for love in the end. And that's what I believe wholeheartedly, and we've all experienced it all, either have or will experience it all. And that's the game that I believe our soul signed up for. It's signed up for, okay, I want to go deep down the rabbit hole of contrast so that I can fully appreciate who and what I am.
Yeah.
That's what I believe is going on.
So then there's a never-ending, bottomless ocean of love that Source pulls from to bring unlimited lifetimes and beings to the world, and who knows, to however many other worlds out there.
Yep.
Personally, I like believing that. And it's so interesting. I was talking to a friend on a Zoom before I got over here, and I was like, whatever I say is true and whatever you believe, that's our reality. And I think there's a big part of me that is just waking up so profoundly in 2019 to that being true that I never would have believed before. And everything comes in due time. All this understanding and awareness and all the things that we're talking about. Like, I know there's going to be people listening that they'll listen again, because we went over a lot of we covered the bandwidth, man, on this podcast.
We did.
And I just want to say, like, whatever's happening, you're loved.
Yeah.
So am I.
And to add to that whole perspective on how reality is structured.
Yeah.
It's to me, like you said, if you believe it, it is so. It's like abracadabra. It means I create as I speak, right? You're casting spells with your beliefs and your words, and your words are spells, right? Spelling. And so it's such a powerful thing to take on this perspective. And some of the most intelligent, well-adjusted, healthy, glowing humans I know have had these profound spiritual experiences where they've glimpsed beyond the veil, or so it seems to them and feels to them at least, right? And they believe that they have, and they say it's as real or realer than me and you sitting here, how visceral this experience is to us. And they all what's interesting, they're all coming back with the same story of, oh my gosh, this is how we do it throughout eternity. It's all happening for love in the end. And it doesn't mean it's not going to sting to lose the child or to see something that's painful and that we should be calloused about it.
Right.
But rather it puts it in a perspective that, like, okay, it's all going to be okay. In the end, it's all going to be okay. And actually there is no end. And there's never been a victim throughout eternity. It's all happened for you, not to you, and through you. And when you play with that idea, woo, that's the game changer. Life is not happening to you. It is always, always, and always happening for you and through you.
No matter how challenging. How much pain or how much white knuckling is experienced. And also, too, I was feeling as you were explaining that, like, there is this beautiful element of shared suffering. Like when we all go through a loss together, or we have something together, that's why do you think that war is so glorified? It's because these men and now women are going to war to kill other people. I can't think of a more incredibly challenging proving ground for loss and for just adversity than war. I'm not glorifying war. I think war is one of the lowest forms of human evolution ever, but it's here, and so we're all looking at it right now. And I also believe that whether it's war or athletics or the loss of someone in your community, whatever it is, like we all go through loss. We all will lose people that we love. And it's that feeling of sadness that allows us to really relax and connect with other people. Yep. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Inside Out. No. It's a Disney movie. If you have children, you get to watch this movie with them because I won't spoil it, but sadness is one of the components in the human mind. And sadness and grief is what bonds people together. Yeah. Because in shared suffering is really where we get stabbed and then love can pour out. Yeah. It's like the blade of adversity kind of slits us wide open and then love pours out. And we can actually bathe in that together. Yes. And that's a big part of human existence, which is why what you're doing here and just community in general is more powerful now than ever, which sounds kind of funny because it's always been powerful. Community's always been powerful, but especially now, man, because we're here in this one reality where shit's real crazy right now. Yeah. Shit's real crazy. The earth is hurting. We're hurting each other. There's abject poverty everywhere, and people are living in squalor, and there's a lot of ways that we've treated each other. I can remember being a little boy and just being like, you guys don't have to treat each other like this. When I was a super little kid, I had this awareness of like, we don't have to treat each other the way we're treating each other. It doesn't have to be like this, you guys. Right. And I feel like that's continued into my adult life. So, not really sure where I was going with that. However,
it went where it needed to go.
However, I think it really boils down to, can we just breathe and be in our bodies and just commit to learning about what intelligence is together? Yes. Can we just do it together, man? Because none of us are on a mountaintop wearing white.
The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. It's like,
Amen.
Always be willing to explore with an open mind and open heart. And it's like a lot of the concepts that I passionately share my perspective on as I, this as a babe in the woods, stumble through this reality. I found them to ring true and yield really powerful results. So to me, that's sort of like, okay, that I'm feeling really healthy, happy, well-adjusted, optimistic, and I'm getting great results. So that's a good indicator. And I'm always open for more information, and to shift based off of new information sort of dropping in at any given time.
Okay, so for Wellness Force audience, like share with us optimistic, positive head, what you're all about right now and what you're all about for 2020.
2020. Clear vision.
How do we get up in there with you in 2020?
Well, there's a few ways. So Positive Head, of course, anywhere you search, anywhere there's podcasts, of course, you can find the show. And we do the podcast 5 days a week. Actually, one is an interview style on Wednesdays. For the longest time, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday was just me freestyling whatever was coming up, bubbling up in my own life. Yeah. And then recently, my dear friend, Dr. Erica Middlemiss, started taking over Tuesdays and Thursdays once I started down the path of launching a new late night style, consciousness elevating, video production, talk show, TV style talk show called Optimistic, spelled MYSTIC. And so Optimistic is actually the reason for moving into this property that we're at now, the Mystic Manor, where what we do is basically we have retreats. So anyone out there interested in coming can check out optimistic.tv and see some videos we put together with the trailer for this new show and all about the retreats. And basically what folks come on a Monday. We have, chef prepared vegan meals throughout the week. We do workshops, several days of workshops, different healing modalities. Dr. Joe Dispenza's one of his right-hand women or works closely with him. Kimboda takes them through whole Dr. Joe thing. I spend a day with people. Actually, if any of your people ended up coming, we would have to get you. I would love to get you here to come.
Let's go, you guys.
That would be cool.
How many people need to join us for me to show up here?
You know what? Any amount we could figure that out. I mean, we could do a full week even of like just your people.
That would be awesome.
Or just depending. I scheduled through from July 2019 to July 2020, 111 spots. So 3 rooms each week. Are here at the Mystic Manor, and you spend a full week, and I spend a full day with you. Then we also, you're a guest on the Positive Head podcast one day. We then live tape with Optimistic. It's, I do an opening monologue. There's a live visionary artist painting. We have the main interviewee. There's a live audience of 30 or so people. You were in the last live taping.
It's a great production.
And then we bring the retreat guests out that have been there the whole week. That's their last night when we record that. Bring them out to share a little bit about their week or ask a question of me and whoever that week's interviewee is, and then conclude with a live musical performance. So we'll be releasing Optimistic in 2020. First, I set foot in the Mystic Manor on January 1st, 2020, and we're planning to release the first episode on January 1st. I set first January 1st, 2019.
2019.
I was here. First time I ever saw the property.
That's your future self talking, Brandon.
Yeah. And then January 1st, 2020, we're planning to release the first episode and then just continue to release them weekly from there. So
amazing. Yeah, you're doing such good work.
Yeah.
And it was really talk about synchronicity, us coming together.
Yeah.
A couple different friends on the same day mentioning, and I'd never heard of you.
It's so funny.
And you'd never heard of me. Right. And that's kind of the richness of life. It's like, you guys, no matter what you're doing, if you think you know it all, you've experienced it all. Nope.
Yep.
You haven't, because there's all kinds of surprises that spirit, God, universe, higher intelligence, however you want to describe it, is bringing to you, man. And can I talk about wellness for Positive Head?
Yes, absolutely.
So you guys, Brandon's personality and his ability to articulate thought and the way that he really pours his heart and soul into this mission, I really feel it. And I'm the same way. I really believe.
We're definitely brothers from another alien,
from a cosmic mother. So I believe in this discovery process of physical and emotional intelligence, and I'm sure we've had many of the same guests on our shows. I think I saw that you had Corey Allen as a guest.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So we explore this not from a place of anything else other than what's real, what's really going to help us. And so if that sparks your interest, add us to your queue. Along with Positive Head. It's Wellness Force Radio, wellnessforce.com. There's also, we talked about breathing. If you guys want to get a free breath work that has been 6 months curated, I would love to give that to your audience. It's wellnessforce.com/M21. It's morning 21.
Cool.
300 guests. I put together all the main juicy things that'll actually help us start our day. And breath work, it's free. It's in there. It's your gift. So from my heart to yours, thank you. Thank you, man, for having me on the show. And I know my audience is loving you too. So deep bow to who you are and how you're serving the world.
You are a beautiful reflection. So thank you for showing up. And that's one of the things on this journey I'm more and more excited about is the more I continue to level up, the clearer the reflections that I call in. And it's and that's truly how I view it as people come into my field and, I synchronistically landed here today, and then I'm feeling into this person. I'm like, oh, well, I can see why, what a close reflection you are. And so, we're doing it together. And I so applaud all of your work as well. And I look forward to continuing to co-create together.
I completely agree. And I'm excited for the other mysteries that I didn't know were going to happen in 2020 to unfold.
Yes.
To actually unfold. We hear that word unfolding and I'm like, it's really true because we can't see it until it comes to the other side.
Everything in divine timing.
Thanks, man.
Till next time, journey well, everyone. Love you all so much.
Thanks for listening to the show, my friend. Everything you learned on this podcast starts, morning practices. So from over 300 world-class guests, we pulled together 6 simple yet powerful morning practices down into a 21-minute system guaranteed to increase your vibration and the way that you feel every day. Get this free, powerful guide over at wellnessforce.com/M21. And if you love this show, share it with somebody. Share it with somebody that you love or that you care about. You can support the show easily by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Just go to wellnessforce.com/review, or if you're on your phone, just tap it, hit the link in purple that says review this podcast. And the journey does not stop here. We're continuing this discovering process in our private Facebook group over at wellnessforce.com/group. You can be a part of it. You already are. All you have to do is join us at wellnessforce.com/group, and I will welcome you at the door. Now go out into your life and live your life well. And until I see you again real soon, I'm wishing you love and wellness.